Morning, guys. It's Jeff with HKS Systems Lock Safe. Hope you're doing well. Today we're going to be installing new pivots on a glass door. If those who don't work in the trade may not know exactly how these work. Basically, this is a pivot system. This is for FCO brand. So they have all different brands, depends who the manufacturer is. And the way it's designed is in the door frame. This is in concrete typically, and then this is actually part of the frame on the opening side, on the hinge side or pivot side of the door, as it's usually called. Very simple system. It's usually all of them share very common characteristics, no matter what brand. This is, like I said, an FCO, but you need to know different brands have different situations of sets. From center to center of back sets, from here to here, and different things. There's a couple odds and ends, but they're all very similar. They all share the same characteristics of how they work. So there's basically a hardened bolt, and that's used to sit in this cup. The problem you find, I'm in the Midwest, is usually after 5 years or so, these tend to rust. These don't usually rust, but the pivots in here rust, and they're ball bearings, and they eventually rust out, and then they'll just fall. So by gravity, it'll literally fall lower than it used to be, and instead of sitting on top of this, it sits pretty much flush on this, and then you'll see the frames start to drag. So what you have to do is take the door down, which is what we're going to be showing you today, and take it and replace it. Once again, these are ball bearings. It's basically just meant to be bolted onto the glass door. Sits on there, and then that just pivots on there. Some of the nicer models like Conair, you can actually have a set screw on top, and it'll allow you to lift that up. But these are non-adjustable. 99% of them are non-adjustable. Conair, I believe, is the only one I've ever seen that has an adjustable set. So that's how that is. Typically, when we replace them, you're only doing it on the doors and headers. You don't pull that out typically unless there's something broke or it's rusted beyond serviceability, because that is in concrete, so you usually have to chip that out, pull it out of the frame, and it's a big hassle, a lot of extra money, but if that's something you need to do, sometimes you do have to do that. So the top section is pretty similar, a little bit easier to work with. It's basically, these are shown on the top of the header of the door frame, and you'll see some of them have 2 screws, some of them have 3 screws. Usually it's 2 or 3. That's all you're going to see. I've never seen anything else. And then this is the same thing. It's the actual top pivot. And these are spring-loaded. So if you're lucky enough and you need to remove the door, and sometimes these screws get corroded in there and you can't get them apart, you could just drill a hole right through here in line with this pin, push down on it, and it'll release, and then you could pull the door out and replace what you need. Same thing, this is basically just meant to ride in there. It's a bronze bushing, and it's meant to just ride in there. And once again, you would bolt that on the face of the door. So we will be doing that this morning. I'll show you how to pull everything apart, break it down, and we'll be back. Thanks. All right, guys, so we're ready to roll. We got the Olympus cart. It's sort of nice, folds up nice and lightweight. Not the best made, but it lasts okay. It's nice when you get older, you don't want to necessarily bend over to pick up all the tools and parts, so it's nice to have it all at waist level. We have the DeWalt stuff. Pretty much all you're going to need is a screwdriver, a Phillips driver, and a hammer maybe, and you're going to definitely need some wrenches. These are either going to be 1/2 inch, 7/16, or 10 millimeters. I don't know the rhyme or reason. Sometimes they're different sizes, but sometimes you need an Allen key set as well, hex key. So that's all you should need, but that's all we're going to be doing, and I'll get to the door and show you what we got. Thanks. I almost forgot, one of the biggest tools you could get that's good for glass doors especially is get something that's got a nice grip to it. Those glass doors, they're aluminum, and they're pretty heavy, probably 50 to 70 pounds depending which ones you get, sometimes a little bit more. but these will stick nice to the glass, especially when you're working by yourself like I normally do. You need all the help you could do. You don't want that glass door to slip and drop because they do not bounce very well. They will break apart the minute it hits the ground. So get these. It's nice and easy. Keep your grip on the glass while you're doing it. So here you go, guys. This is the pivot system that's currently on the door. You can see it's all rusted and rotted out. It's allowing the door to fall onto the ground there and make contact with the threshold. So typically you'll be able to tell the different models. You can see the gaps in there. Usually when that gap's beyond 3/16 of an inch, which it's about a ½ inch now, you can tell that's in need of replacement. So here's how you know your pivot is bad. Typically the door's going to close. You can see it rubbing in the bottom section of the frame here, but that is due to the door sagging. Quick and easy way is to lift up on the door. You can see that'll cure it for a second or two when you lift up, but that's just due to the rotted out pivot. So we're going to be changing those. All right, the first thing I usually do is take off the door arm for the closer so you could make it all the way up. You got to remove those three. 99% of the time they're rusted in place, so it's either drill it out or you could drill through the top and tap that rod down. Alright, so that's the bottom pivot here. You can see there's two. Typically they're 7/16. Sometimes they're 10 millimeters. Bolts, remove those. Do the same for the top. Then you'll be ready to replace. Alright, so you see those ones were 7/16 that came out. The new ones are 10 millimeters. I would also tell you, if you don't have these geared ratchets, and you're going to be doing this type of work, get a set. Get them in both metric and standard, and they're really nice that you don't have much room in between there. You can't put a socket or anything in there. It's really nice and quick, and it ratchets. So it just depends on which side you put it in. Real time saver. So you could see how that is actually routed out with the little L type section. That is used for the springs. So that little spring actually sits in that pocket, and that allows you to actually go from the inside and push that spring down, which would then retract that. So it's a quick way to remove that door frame. Usually these are seized. Honestly, this is probably the first one in 20 years I've seen that actually wasn't seized. But if they work, yeah, you could just literally open the door, push that down, and then that retracts the actual plunger, which allows you to then remove the door. But typically they're seized, so always plan on replacing them. Alright guys, so we're just wrapping it up here. We replaced the bottom pivot. We replaced the top pivot. I gotta clean that dirt off there. And then we adjusted the door closer. Now you can see, door closer they don't want to change, but it's as good as we could adjust it. But you can see it now closes by itself. No dragging in the end. Nice and quiet. That lifts it up that extra 3/16 of an inch, so it doesn't drag on the ground anymore, and they're good to go for another 10 years or so, depending on weather and use. If you need service for this, please give us a call. HKS Systems Lock and Safe, 847-204-7046. Thanks.